We want to find the surface area of revolution about the x-axis for the function y equals 3 sine 2x over the closed interval from 0 to pi over 2. Looking at the graph on the lower left, here's the graph of our function y equals 3 sine 2x over the closed interval from 0 to pi over 2. If we rotate this about the x-axis, it would give us this surface, and our goal is to find the surface area of this surface. We know from our lesson, since we have a function of x, we'll be using this formula here to find the surface area, where the surface area is equal to 2 pi times the integral of r of x times the square root of the quantity 1 plus f prime of x squared integrated with respect to x from a to b, where r of x is the distance from any point on our graph to the axis of rotation, and we should recognize this square root as the integrand when finding arc length. So if we select any point on our graph, let's say this point here, this distance here would be r of x, which would be the function value 3 sine 2x. And therefore r of x equals 3 sine 2x. F of x is also 3 sine 2x. And now we'll find f prime of x, which should be 3 times the derivative of sine 2x, which requires the chain rule. So we'd have 3 times cosine 2x times 2, or 6 cosine 2x, which means the surface area is equal to 2 pi times the integral from 0 to pi over 2 of r of x, which is 3 sine 2x, times the square root of 1 plus f prime of x squared. Well, here's f prime of x, so f prime of x squared would be 36 cosine squared 2x, integrated with respect to x. Notice how we could factor out this 3. Let's do this and continue on the next slide. So we factor out the 3. That would give us the surface area equals 6 pi times integral from 0 to pi over 2 of sine 2x times the square root of 1 plus 36 cosine squared 2x. But now let's also do this by hand using the integration formula given here below, where we have the integral of the square root of u squared plus a squared integrated with respect to u. So to begin, let's rewrite this integral to better fit this form. And notice how it's also going to require u substitution. Let's write this as s equals 6 pi times integral from 0 to pi over 2 of sine 2x. Let's write this as the square root of, let's write 36 cosine squared 2x as 6 cosine 2x squared plus, let's write 1 as 1 squared. Notice in this form we should be able to recognize that u is equal to 6 cosine 2x and a equals 1. Notice this means differential u is equal to 6 times the derivative of cosine 2x times dx, which will give us 6 times negative sine 2x times 2, or negative 12 sine 2x dx. Notice how the integral contains sine 2x dx, so let's divide both sides by negative 12. So this tells us that negative 1/12 du equals sine 2x dx. So now let's write this in terms of u. So we'll have s equals 6 pi. Notice these limits of integration are in terms of x, not u. So notice when x is 0, u is equal to 6 times cosine 0, which is 6. And when x is pi over 2, we'd have u equals 6 times cosine this would be cosine of pi, which is -1, so we have u equals -6. Next, sine 2x dx is equal to -1/12 du. Let's factor out the -1/12, and then we have du, and then we have the square root of 6 cosine 2x squared, that would be u squared, and then since a is equal to 1, we have plus a squared. And now we can apply our integration formula given here. So notice how this simplifies to -1/2 pi. The antiderivative here gives us an extra factor of 1/2, so we have times 1/2, and then we have u times the square root of u squared plus a squared, natural log absolute value of u squared plus a squared, and we were integrating from 6 to -6. Let's continue on the next slide. Notice how here we have -1/4 pi. So we'll first substitute -6 for u, then 6, and then find the difference. And remember, a was equal to 1, so a squared is 1. So when u is -6, we'd have -6 times the square root of, this would be -6 squared plus 1 squared, that's 37, plus a squared is just 1, so we have plus natural log absolute value of -6 plus, again we have square root 37, and then when u is 6, we have 6, and then the square root of 6 squared plus 1 squared, that's 37, plus, again, a squared is 1, so we have natural log absolute value of 6 plus square root 37. To save some time, I've already evaluated these expressions on the calculator. This comes out to -1/4 pi times this quantity here is approximately -38.98836, and this quantity here is approximately positive 38.98836. So this comes out to -1/4 pi times, this difference comes out to -77.97672. So here we have -pi/4 times -77.97672, which gives us the same result of approximately 61.2428. And again, this is surface area, so this would be square units. I hope you found this helpful.